Hello and welcome to episode 6, count 'em, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the Final Whistle, a Lewiston Tribune sports podcast. I'm Sam Taylor, sports reporter with the Lewiston Tribune and the Moscow Pullman Daily News, and I'm joined by our very own Trevor Junt.
Hello, welcome in. I'm also a sports reporter with the Lewiston Tribune and Moscow Pullman Daily News. Excited to be here, excited to talk about all the sports that we have in this local area.
Be sure to tune in each week to an episode of the Final Whistle coming out Tuesday nights. You can listen to us on Spotify, on Apple, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. Also online at lmtribune.com. We've got a jam-packed show for you talking about spring college football for both University of Idaho and Washington State University. And then North Idaho Awards took place. There were lots of local honorees. We'll go through some of those. And then we'll talk about our prep athlete of the week and the week that he had with his Moscow Bears. And then we'll preview some upcoming events, 2 of those that you can keep an eye on this coming week. That'll sure to be exciting. So, without further ado, let's get into spring college football. Let's start with Idaho, actually. So, Trevor, you had a chance to take in the Vandals' spring scrimmage. What did you see? What did you notice about Vandal football?
Yeah, well, absolutely the defense is still on top. As we talked about last week, the defense is going to have advantages this early into the season as spring ball is still developing the team. But then there's a little bit more promise on the offensive side. Instead of Jack Wagner playing with the starters, it was Nick Josephic who played with the starters. And it just kind of changed the offense a little bit. So I don't know. It's very different. So I think there's definitely quarterback competition there. But I just see Josephic leading the charge right now there. Just to go on top of that a little bit, Wagner threw 2 picks in the scrimmage. One was just he scrambled to the right, threw it back in the middle of the field, and then that's like a safety's dream right there. Yeah. Just jump the route and pick that off. So that was his first pick, and then his second pick was just a bad pass to the tight end. I think that one difference between Josephic and Wagner is that Josephic can throw the intermediate routes. He can find the guys in the middle of the field and work the second layer, where Wagner's more of a run and gun kind of guy where he will scramble, try to make plays, and then throw it deep downfield. That's the big difference that I see, and I think that offensive coordinator of Idaho, Matt Lanahan, also sees that. Yeah. So I don't know. If I'm Wagner, I'm not feeling too confident going into the spring game, the rest of the spring season, I guess. If I'm Josephic, I'm feeling pretty good. But again, defense still dominated, multiple picks, multiple sacks. There was one sack where it was on Rocco Koch, where he doesn't wear the gold jerseys like every other quarterback. He wears just a regular white jersey like the rest of the offense, meaning that he could be hit. Ryder Bordner got through, was ready for the sack, and hit Cook really hard, and the ball popped out, and then defensive lineman Braxton Lawrence scooped it up and ran 70 yards for a touchdown. So you can see the defense is still being dominant, but then there's some flashes on offense. Lanahan said that, here's a quote from him. He's talking about Josephic. He said, "I think he understands the game at a high level, and that's what separates you. It builds confidence in the rest of the offense, builds confidence in the coaching staff and the rest of the players." He talked about how Josephic hasn't played a ton. He's a redshirt sophomore, but got injured pretty quickly last year. Broke his collarbone, I believe. And so it's just him coming back and taking the starting job is what's going on right now. Yeah, I don't know. It was a good practice. It was very interesting to watch. The running game is looking really good. Hayden Kinchlow is a tight end who played running back in college, and he's a junior right now, and he's playing running back for Idaho right now. So it looks like he'll be a fullback in 21 formation and stuff, but maybe a tight end in 12 formation. So we'll see. He's running downhill. Him and Nate Thomas. Nate Thomas is running downhill. There was one drive where it's just 3 back-to-back plays, a 15-yard gain, a 10-yard gain, and a 9-yard touchdown by Nate Thomas. Just looking physical. The offensive line was blocking well. They looked physical too. And there was a quote from Nate Thomas that I just loved. He said it was 3 plays in a row. O-line just Mosesed it. It just split that. So, I mean, Mosesed it splitting the Red Sea, just a wide open hole. And he said it was just a beautiful thing to see. That's like a running back's dream. It was great just to talk to him. I got to talk to him a little bit after the practice. Cool guy, and a lot to talk to. Any questions, Sam, about Idaho football?
Yeah, looking at that quarterback competition, it's interesting. So yeah, Jack Lane obviously was the starter. He's now in New Mexico last year, though he was out for an injury in the first game in that Oregon game. He played pretty decent, but just suffered an injury that kept him out until the playoffs, pretty much until the end of the regular season rather. And then you saw Jack Wagner, get the majority of those starts in relief. It was about 7 starts or so. Nick Josephic did get the ball once, and then there was another game, I forget which one exactly, where they rotated. Both these guys, they were obviously in the room last year, got that experience, and both got starting experience for sure. What do you think Jack Wagner needs to do to maybe gain the upper hand or gain his coach's confidence to secure that starting job?
Not make those mistakes like he was making on Saturday. Again, he's a running gun guy, so he'll like throw really deep passes, which you complete like 1, 2, you get lucky if you get 3 like huge gains in a game, so that's not like the main thing he needs to do. So he needs to work on the intermediate routes. He needs to work on working the second layer of the defense and just getting rid of those interceptions. Both of them were just pretty brutal interceptions. I would say they weren't like, oh, great play by the defense. I mean, there were good plays by defense, but they were just like kind of set up throws where it's like right to the guy. The Hayden John was the safety that picked off Jack Wagner, and he just read that the whole way. Like, you cannot scramble to the right and throw. You're not Patrick Mahomes. You're not going to make that throw. If you want to make that throw, like, you have to be a top like level guy, and that's just how it goes. Like when you make those kind of passes, you're not going to succeed most of the time. So just getting rid of those stupid mistakes and just working on your mechanical side of the ball game and working the intermediate routes.
Yeah, so I guess it's definitely worth noting in that it kind of is a reflection. This spring is a reflection of how last season went in terms of Wagner and Josephic, just comparing their performances. Josephic in his limited action, but was nonetheless he threw 42 passes, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Last year, Wagner threw obviously a larger number of passes, 172, but 12 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. And then in that UCD game, he last year he threw 2 interceptions, and then that led to Josephic getting some action.
What I heard from last year is Josephic and Wagner battled. And Josephic eventually won the job until he broke his collarbone.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what's happening there as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that, and it's interesting. I mean, Nick Josephic not too far from home, Walla Walla, Washington kid, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, it'll be super interesting to see how that all breaks down. Obviously, with Linehan, a legendary Idaho quarterback himself, kind of ushering these guys.
Yeah, he said like one of the things that he says, I went through this, and now these guys are going through this, like little mistakes, little working on the mechanical side of playing quarterback. But also, like, one thing that we need to realize is like spring football isn't make or break football. It's just seeing what the identity is going to be, trying to build that identity. I think that was like a main focus that Linehan said in his press conference was, I think we're establishing who we are as an offense, establishing our identity, and that's what spring football is for. That's what he said. And yeah, it's going to be an evolution of seeing what you're good at, trying to build. They talked about physicality a lot, so running the ball, and then also having their offensive line be physical. So getting that physicality there with like the good quarterback that can work. I think again, intermediate routes where most of the success is in college football, and just evolving as an offense is going to take time. So I think that's definitely something to watch. Is like, this isn't make or break. We got a whole, I don't know, what do we have, like 16 weeks until fall football starts. Yeah. So a long time for the team to develop as a team.
Totally, and then obviously a month after that, when they get back into fall camp, and a month to go to the season. So that'll a lot to watch for the Vandals, and super exciting to see that. And obviously their spring game. When is their spring game coming up?
I believe April 26th. It's next Thursday. So April 24th. My bad. April 24th. So next Thursday at 6 p.m. Let's talk about WSU, their spring showcase. How'd that go for you, Sam?
It was pretty interesting to see. Spring showcase was, you could call it the inaugural Crimson and Gray spring showcase. Obviously the Cougars and most teams have played more of a traditional spring game every year, where it's just a full on 11-on-11 full padded scrimmage, 4 quarters, etc. They follow kind of the more so simulated game. In this case, it more resembled a typical practice. They took over 60 snaps in a scrimmage, so they did scrimmage. and they did have a score. What you saw happen is that Zevi took all the number 1 snaps at quarterback, and the offense took about half the snaps, so over 30 snaps, and then a combination of their 3 other backup quarterbacks, and then the number 2 and 3 guys came in to play the other 3 snaps, or the other 30 snaps, excuse me. And so what we're looking at the Palouse, though, is, we could have a quarterback competition brewing. And if it does brew, it's because of decision-making on Zevi Eckhouse's part. He has been, taking the majority of the snaps and all the snaps on Saturday with the number 1 offense. But one name to watch who could be in the running for some quarterback action this year is certainly the front runner for the backup position at the very least, is Jackson Potter, the redshirt sophomore out of California. And Jackson Potter, he was pretty solid. Obviously facing, the number 2 defense, but he was 9 of 11 on Saturday for 100 yards on the dot. He threw a touchdown, interception free. So a really solid day for Jackson Potter. Had some, great connections, some varied throws. And the thing that Zevi said about the offense is that, they're going to have some explosive plays. They're going to have some smaller gain plays. They're not going to be afraid of the big play, and they're going to do things that, whereas what you saw for maybe last year was kind of, it was tougher to manufacture those over the top plays. And then you saw the Washington State offense kind of struggle, especially in the third quarter and in the second half of games, and that cost them down the stretch. And so the hope is for Washington State is that this new system, which is very much ground and pound, will pave the way for those play action opportunities and to throw the ball down the field. And so Zevi has the arm, and it'll be interesting to see just how he does this year.
That's the Rodgers offense, right? It's run the ball, run the ball, run the ball.
Totally, yeah.
So, I mean, my question for you, I guess, we both have quarterback competitions going on in Idaho and WSU. Do you think because I don't think there's a real competition at WSU going on. I think it's Eckhouse's job. What's your personal opinion about that?
Yeah, so the exact quote from Rodgers was, the starting job isn't just straight up Zevi's. There's going to be more competition coming this summer. I think there is some semblance of a competition. I think Zevi would have to start throwing a bunch of interceptions each rep, and Jackson would have to play out of his mind in order to get the job. I think Jackson's certainly on the right track. But the other thing to watch for is that the spring transfer portal opens just on Wednesday. They could find a transfer quarterback who is in the portal in the spring and bring him into Washington State and spice up that quarterback competition, the quarterback room. Even if it's just to get more of a veteran guy, because right now Jackson Potter is probably the most experienced behind Zevi, and he has been in a third string limited role throughout his career. It's just 2 or 3 years of college football. And so there could be some value in bringing in some experience, whether that's to directly compete with Zevi or at least to back up. And then it would be kind of a Jackson Potter competition for the backup spot, which I think Jackson would still have a decent shot at winning.
Yeah, I think
so. Yeah,
I think that makes more sense because to bring like a number 1 guy, I think they have to pay somebody. And I don't know if they have the budget for that. So yeah, maybe like a veteran second stringer who could fight for the job is somebody who would make sense.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly familiar with who's even out there, and most people don't know because obviously the portal opens Wednesday and guys could declare at any point.
Yeah.
And so, you have some teams are in the middle of spring camp like Idaho, and you have some teams like Washington State, which scheduled their spring practice to end right before the portal so they could focus all their energy on the portal. And so it'll be interesting to see how that all works out. Some other highlights from the spring game. Obviously, offense had the edge. Zevi's one touchdown that he threw was to Leon Neal Jr., a wide receiver who's really caught the eye of his coaches and his teammates.
Just got a scholarship, right?
Yeah, he just got a scholarship this year. He kind of took advantage of like a broken coverage. It was in the red zone, and he just got wide open, got the slant pass from Zevi, and then took a few steps into the end zone. And Rodgers, in talking about that, he was saying that was he attributed that more to defensive error than offensive execution. Though, I mean, nonetheless, it was still a great play for Zevi and Leon and the whole offense to take advantage of that. Now, for the defense, obviously you're facing your own team, so there's a hope that what Zevi was saying and what some other guys were saying is that obviously they want to score touchdowns and have success in that aspect. But if they come up short, they know that that's only a good thing for the team and that the defense is also doing their part. And it was a turnover-free day. However, there were 1 or 2 balls that were dropped that could have been interceptions. One was similar to what happened on Saturday for Idaho. It was a deep shot over the middle into triple coverage. It was like one guy who was already in the end zone. And Matt Durant's star safety at South Dakota State, who followed Rodgers and his staff to Pullman, was right there, arms out. he just drops it, can't come down with it. And Zevi did thank him in the post-game news conference. He was like, "Thanks, Matt, for dropping that." So otherwise, it was kind of lighthearted, but also that was the kind of mistakes which would lead to Zevi maybe not being as secure in the QB job. But nonetheless, Zevi's got the tools, he's got the experience, balled out at the FCS level at Bryant before coming to Washington State last year, and so, it's it'll be interesting to see how that all works out. But for the Rogers, because Rogers is a defensive minded guy, and so it was great. Yeah,
Idaho, there were some guys that stood out defensively, but they were like transfers, like Donovan Parham, Maurice Himes is a guy that's standing out, but they're transfers. They're not like 4-year Vandals or 3-year Vandals. They're guys that came from other places. What about like the new transfers? Were there any guys that stood out at WCU?
Totally. I'd say Matt Durant's definitely stood out. There was an instance, a safety South Dakota State transfer. There's a situation where he had a massively late hit on a running back, Josh Joyner. The sideline got chippy. Christian Hilborn especially was kind of red in the face, yelling at him, and as you expect, because that was not the greatest situation. But Durant didn't even really like let that phase him. What happened, because the very next play he laid this tackle on a guy, and so it was interesting to see kind of that string of events and how he's competing all the way, and even there were officials, so he got the flag on that, but he didn't let that mistake kind of get to him, and he just bounced back with a massive hit the next time. And then obviously he was in the right position for that near pick, and there were several other instances. There were Colby Humphrey as a cornerback was decent. There was a situation where he almost had got an interception. Zevi threw into like triple coverage on the sideline. I believe Josh Meredith was there, and Colby kind of swarmed over to like knock that away. And so that was interesting to see. Another guys that stood out, I mean, a lot of it was the defense. Tucker Large, another safety transfer from South Dakota State. He's a guy to keep an eye on. Safety was sort of a weak point for the Washington State defense last season, but I think it'll be one of the strong points this season, just based on Rogers bringing his South Dakota State guys over, and then the depth that has stayed from Washington State. Kaio Pati will probably be decent for Washington State. He's a guy who stayed. You have Jamari Colson, a cornerback who stayed from last season, previous seasons, and so I think he's kind of in the running, driver's seat for a starting cornerback job, and so lots of guys for Washington State that'll stand out. Defensively, I think that's the defensive line rather is where I think they'll want to do some transfer portal shopping basically to kind of build the depth there. Rogers, it's kind of like a hockey line where he's going to have lots of substitutions, and they're going to have a rotation essentially on the defensive line that will keep guys fresh, and so that's how they're going to really depend on their depth. And maybe they won't have like a standout starting guy, maybe they will. They have some South Dakota State transfers. They have some Washington State guys that have stayed, like Bryson Lamb, who's a walk-on last year, who started all 13 games for Washington State, or played in all 13 games for Washington State, and so guys like that will get more reps, more opportunity. But I can also see them kind of boosting the room with some transfers, and so it'll be interesting to see that over the next few days.
So I guess our next topic is the North Idaho Awards, right?
Yeah.
So I guess let's hop into those then. So the college woman athlete of the year was Ginger Kiefer. Ginger won 3 WAC swimming titles, all in school record times. The college men athletes of the year were Keyshawn James Newby of U of I football, Tommy McCormick of U of I football, and Alden Hamilton from LCSC basketball. The boys athlete of the year, the male athlete of the year, David Klutt from Kamei. Do you know anything about David?
Yeah, so David Klutt, he's their quarterback and point guard. He's committed to play basketball at College of Idaho, the reigning NAIA national champions. And so Klutt, whenever he stepped on the field, he just made something happen. He was a massive runner and passer for the Cubs, and also played defensive back. He was a second-team All-State selection at quarterback. It's the 3rd straight season he has earned first-team All-State honors. He was a White Pine League Player of the Year in football and was a first-team selection above quarterback and defensive back. In basketball, he led the Cubs to the state finals and was named to the Idaho State Class 2A Player. He was the Idaho Class 2A Player of the Year. In basketball, for the Cubs this year, he averaged 17.3 points, 15.7 rebounds, and 2.6 block shots per game.
That's crazy for us.
Which it is, that's pretty awesome. Just to put up 17 points a game, that's pretty solid. And you saw the Cubs really depend on that. And so so he'll be a Yote next year. Pretty excited for David. And so, yeah, just shout out to Kamiai and David Clute for earning Male Athlete of the Year.
And then female athlete of the year of 4A, 1A was Kendra Meyer of Genesee. Kendra was named the 1A state player of the year, and she struck out 128 batters in 114 innings, which is crazy. And then just to like rattle off some of the top ones, boys coach of the year of 6A, 5A was Griffin Rod of Moscow baseball. 4A, 1A was Zane Hobart from Kendrick football. Girls coach of the year was Brian Malcolm from Genesee softball, and Gwen Spence from Logos track. Boys team of the year was the 4A, 1A Kendrick football. Girls team of the year was Genesee softball of Logos track, and then the team of the year was Idaho football as well. Any of those stand out to you, Sam?
Yeah, so we've all heard the Kendrick Tigers, obviously 4-time state champions in football, 4 straight state champions. They have more total titles, but 4 straight state titles for Kendrick football. And this year, obviously moving up a division, going up a state classification, and still winning the title was pretty impressive to see for the Tigers. And a lot of those guys. And then of course you saw the Kendrick boys basketball team, which was also a nominee for this, win their state title, and that is comprised of a lot of the same guys. Maddox Kirkland, Raleigh Rosasinder. And so it's super cool to see all these guys stand out. And, Kendrick's a story that we've told plenty of times, but we'll probably tell plenty more because they keep winning. They keep putting their name in the paper, honestly, and just a lot of love for the Tigers. So shout out Kendrick. And then for the team of the year, Idaho football, definitely a reflection of everything Jason Eck has built. And obviously Eck left to coach in New Mexico, and with him went Keyshawn James Newby, the college men athlete of the year, and Jack Lane, and a lot of guys. But to build up Idaho football from it was a kind of a dark decade or so before then, just not a lot of playoff action, not a lot of success. But now the Vandals have gone to the FCS playoffs for 3 straight years. And the momentum, figures the Vandal fans can continue with Thomas Ford Jr., who was an assistant under Eck, now leading the team. But rebirthing that legacy of success for Idaho football, and so that's reflected here, and then reflected in 2 guys: Tommy McCormick, linebacker, graduating, and then Keyshawn James Newby, edge rusher, getting that College Men Athlete of the Year award. Then Alton Hamilton, we've talked about him as well, but he's the only guy in the Cascade Conference to average a double-double with over 17 points and then over 10 rebounds a game. Led the Warriors to the Cascade Conference final, and then also into the NAIA tournament. And so they kind of depended on Alton. He had plenty of great games, and he was definitely the strong, talented roster all around, but Alton Hamilton definitely stood out. He also he was the Cascade Conference Player of the Year. So good stuff from up there on the hill from LC State.
And then we have Prep Athlete of the Week, right?
Yeah.
Butch Kiblin.
Wrapping up North Idaho Awards, going to kind of more local awards. We've got, as you said, Butch Kiblin of Moscow Baseball is the P1 FCU Prep Athlete of the Week. And Trevor, you got a chance to see Butch play this week with the Moscow Bears right here in Lewiston. What was that experience like?
In the top of the 7th inning, Butch Kiblin was up to bat, and he hit a 2 RBI double, scored 2 guys, and just ignited a fire in Moscow and the Bears. And the Bears just went off from there. Like a momentum carried them from there, and they scored, I think it was 11-run inning. And they just exploded from offense. Kiblin had 5 RBI in that first game. Kiblin played left field. I guess I didn't mention this. He played left field, which he doesn't usually do. He's usually a pitcher only. Rod asked me before the game, can you give me a play in left field? And he said, it's a beautiful day to play baseball. I'm in. And basically is what he said. And he played left field, and that was interesting. So, I think Rod said that they hope to build on that momentum. That builds confidence as a batter and as a player to be like, oh, I can do other things than just be a lights out dominant pitcher. I can be a left fielder as well. And so I think him playing outfield is going to be interesting when he isn't pitching, but also when Kiblin is pitching, he's going to be dominant. He's going to have a great outing.
Then move on to a new segment where we're calling Eye on the Ball. So in this segment, we'll just highlight 1 or 2, maybe 3 upcoming events, upcoming games that are happening this next week, and why you should at least pick up a paper the next day and read about why it happened and how it happened. So starting with this weekend series coming up against Lewis Clark State baseball. Jam-packed show, so we didn't actually talk about the Warriors themselves, but I got a chance to go out on Friday to see the Warriors play. College of Idaho, they ended up sweeping the Yotes this weekend in 4 games. Jaden Williamson in that Friday game struck out the side 4 times, 4 of the 5 innings. He retired all. He got his outs all through the strikeout. That wasn't a foul drama. There was a balk, there was some hit by pitches early in the first, which led to some other run, and then a missed fly ball, which led to a dropped fly ball, which led to a couple more runs being scored. But at the end of the day, the Warriors did what they did to win that game. The offense is exciting. It kind of seems to have turned the corner at the right time with Ike George, who was CCC Player of the Week last week, stealing 2 bases and batting in 2 runners, getting on base with those singles, and then Charlie Updegrave really exhibiting some power still with his home run hitting, and he cranked this double on Friday that was like deep, basically right to the left field wall, and it fell right between the two outfielders as they were vying for it. And so, the Warriors, they got a deep team. A lot we saw from their pitchers able to go in those 17 innings a couple weeks ago, and so. Yeah. And they've kind of saved the best for last. They've got Bushnell this weekend, and British Columbia the weekend after that in Lewiston. And so those are the 3 teams: LC State, Bushnell, and British Columbia, that are at the top 3 places in the standings of the Cascade Conference. And so Warriors right now have the edge, having swept the series and being in first place. But that it'll be interesting to see a lot of what will happen this next 2 weeks, this weekend in particular with Bushnell, will determine who hosts the Cascade Conference tournament, because the first place team hosts that conference tournament.
So make or break time for baseball.
Make or break time for baseball, absolutely. And so they're on the road this weekend, but you can listen on the radio, KOZE 950 AM, and so lots to pay attention and read all about it in the paper, the Elm Tribune. And so look out for Warrior baseball. And our other item, Trevor, do you want to talk about Genesee at Kendrick softball?
Yeah, Genesee 7-0 with 5-1 in conference, and Kendrick is 4-2 and 4-0 in conference. Hayden Kimberling and Kendrick and Kendrick Meyer, who we talked about, got Player of the Year. They're both 2-way players and great pitchers as well. So we'll see that matchup on Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's in Julietta, so that will just be an interesting softball game. I think it will be. I don't know. Softball is high scoring, but if they're both pitching, then it's going to be a low scoring game. So we'll see. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty interesting. I've been talking to Genesee's coach, Kendra Myers, really kind of turned a corner for a changeup. Obviously, she's been good, but she's kind of leveled that up, brought her game to a whole nother level. That's on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Super exciting, and so then we'll of course have the results in Wednesday's paper. So yeah, keeping our eye on the ball for LC State baseball, and then Genesee at Kendrick softball. That's it for today's Final Whistle. Trevor, just I guess anything to look forward to for this week? And yeah,
I don't know, just read about sports, watch sports, listen to more sports, and thanks for listening.
Sweet. Yeah, for Trevor Junt, I'm Sam Taylor. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great week.